It was getting close to 8 a.m., but that hotel lobby in Atlanta had already come alive. Reporters were stretched out across brown leather chairs, advisors had their bags resting on their knees, and campaign staffers were buried in their phones while waiting in the coffee line. And right in the middle of it all stood a woman with an unusual kind of calm. Elise Stefanik. Her eyes were locked onto the hotel's massive TV screen. A live stream from Texas was playing, a Unity and Courage rally. A young woman had just stepped onto the stage, throwing her arms in the air like a rock star as the crowd went wild. She wore a faded denim jacket, gripped a mic in her hand, and behind her, a giant LED screen flashed a single phrase: "Enough is enough." Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Or as she had become known over the past 2 months, something like a political messiah to America's youth. Brand new to politics, no bills proposed, no seat in any chamber. But she had millions of followers on TikTok, a Red Bull-sponsored documentary series, and a lineup of billionaire investors funding her campaign. High school kids were rocking her merch. Influencers were making videos calling her the generation that's taking America back. CNN called her a political pop star, while Vox dubbed her the next Kennedy. But Elise Stefanik looked down and wrote a single word in her notebook: product. She'd been in political strategy for 15 years. She'd seen it all. The breeze of Obama, the storm of Trump, the dim flicker of Harris. But this was different. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez wasn't a politician. She was a launch. A PR army humming behind the scenes, campaign logos straight out of minimalist design firms, speeches paced like TED Talks, glances rehearsed for the cameras. And behind all that glossy packaging? Elise didn't know yet, but she was going to find out. Her assistant leaned in, holding a freshly delivered folder. "You'll want to see this," he said. The title on the cover was simple: "Not Tomorrow Now, AOC PAC Financial Reports." Elise flipped through the pages in silence. Inside were donor lists, fund routing maps, the footprints of countless Delaware-based shell companies. One line caught her eye: Aurora Capital, managing partner D. Thorne. "Enough is enough?" Elise let out a soft snort. "Yeah," she muttered. "Enough. But of what?" AOC was still speaking on the screen, her words laced with youthful passion and a hint of righteous anger. But Elise wasn't listening anymore. In her mind, a different scene was already playing out. This wasn't just a rally, it was a script. And every script has a breaking point. Hers was coming. Mornings in Washington are always busy, but that day, the sound of footsteps echoing off the marble floors of the Capitol went beyond the usual rush. Elise Stefanik sat quietly in her office, carefully going through the documents in front of her. Bright screens, slideshow decks, donor maps. But what she was looking for wasn't in the charts. It was hidden in the spaces between them. She already knew what was behind AOC's man of the people image. Shell companies, paper-thin foundations set up in Delaware, hedge fund execs, laid over the campaign like a soft cover. It was all there, just hidden under different names. And Elise was ready to rip off the mask. Meanwhile, the media outside was airing AOC's rallies live. Commentators praised the authenticity in her words. But to Elise, none of it felt real. It was all a performance, a product of an agency. Carefully chosen words, well-managed outrage, shiny promises wrapped in hope, aimed straight at young people. AOC wasn't a politician. She was a product launch. And the investors behind her weren't just backing a candidate, they were growing an asset. To Elise, this wasn't just annoying, it was dangerous. Because this new wave of politics, leaking through cracks in the system, wasn't trying to challenge it, it was trying to run the show behind the curtain. Her assistant quietly opened the door and stepped in. "The report you approved is ready to go. Graphics, data, the full donation trail, it's all laid out." Elise nodded. "Not yet," she said. "It's not time. We need to give them a little more rope first." Strategy always came down to timing. The facts were strong, sure, but if they were dropped at the wrong moment, they'd just be noise. Elise wasn't interested in noise. She was waiting for that one sentence that echoes in silence. That afternoon, AOC's campaign dropped a new video on social media. Titled "Justice for the Next Generation," it opened with tear-jerking music and clips of kids in low-income neighborhoods. AOC stood center frame, saying, "This system forgot us, but we're not going to forget each other." Toward the end, a link to donate popped up. But Elise's eye caught something else. A painting hanging on the wall in the background. Maybe a small detail, but to her, it was a door. The signature on the painting didn't belong to a local artist. It was from someone who only sold to elite collectors in New York. The kind of work only shown in private viewings, invite only. And Elise knew exactly what that meant. Only one kind of person gets invited to those rooms: donors. The system wasn't broken. On the contrary, it was working exactly as planned. AOC's revolution was choreographed, and Elise had found the softest spot in the whole setup, the disconnect from reality. Now, all she had to do was open the right window and let the public see it. Sometimes you don't need to shout to bring down a story. Sometimes all it takes is a document or a quietly opened door. Elise Stefanik was tucked away in a corner of the Capitol's archive room that morning. The papers in her hands weren't just backup for a theory anymore, they were turning into the kind of evidence that could crack a narrative wide open. AOC's empire, dressed up in grassroots slogans, was starting to buckle under the weight of cold, hard facts. The documents didn't just show where the money came from, they showed who was behind it. Former oil execs, tech billionaires, hedge fund consultants, boutique investment firms, all tangled together in a web that led straight into the heart of the Not Tomorrow Now campaign. Elise slid everything into a single folder, took off her glasses, and paused. Everything was ready. Press kits, slideshows, FEC filings, even transcripts from private donor calls. But none of it excited her. This wasn't about winning anything. It was about revealing something. And what she was about to do wasn't a victory lap. It was a reset button. At 10 o'clock a.m., her press conference didn't start with a bang. Cameras rolled as she stood at the podium, silent. No grand opening line, no fire and brimstone speech. Just a folder held up for everyone to see. "This is what we know," she said. Then came the slides, donation maps, corporate pass-throughs, shell companies looping back to the same names. It all pointed to one truth. AOC's campaign wasn't grassroots. It was greenwashed and gift-wrapped for public consumption. At first, the media hesitated. AOC was still trending, still likable, still real in the eyes of millions. But the documents were too detailed to ignore. Fox News broke into regular programming. CNN approached it cautiously. Social media? It lit up like a match to dry grass. Hashtags like #packaged revolution, #AOCgate, and #sponsored by the system flooded timelines. Through it all, Elise stayed quiet. No tweets, no interviews, just the facts. AOC's campaign headquarters turned into a war room within hours. Advisors scrambled. Damage control plans were drafted. Influencers waited for instructions. But the real damage had already been done. AOC herself looked stunned. Her usual polished words didn't come. She couldn't find the rhythm. The audience wasn't there to be inspired anymore. They wanted answers. That night, AOC went live. No set, no big production. Just a chair, a plain background, and a tired face. She spoke about flaws in the system, about mistakes made by well-meaning teams, and tried to steer the conversation back toward hope. But trust, once cracked, doesn't snap back into place. Polls dropped, fast. Her biggest support group, young voters, started pulling away. Not in anger, but in doubt. Elise watched it all from the outside. She turned down interviews, ignored cable news panels. Instead, she introduced a bill. A clean, sharp one, real-time full disclosure of campaign funding. No loopholes, no legal fog, just plain English and transparency. And to everyone's surprise, support came from both sides of the aisle. Because once people saw how deep the system's branding ran, even some who benefited from it started to back away. AOC never officially dropped out, but her campaign quietly deflated. Donors went silent, endorsements dried up. Her final video, titled "We Learned Together," landed with a shrug. The top comment said it all. "We didn't learn. We got sold to." Elise sat alone in her office again. No lights for the cameras, just the soft glow from her desk lamp. The Capitol's columns stood tall through the window. On her planner, she'd scribbled one simple note. Truth arrives late, but when it does, even silence echoes.